Bitcoin breaking key support to the downside on its way to a target of around $26,000. A warning though, there might be a little fake out, a bullish fake out getting ready to happen. I want to break that down on the charts. ADA, kind of a similar scenario, breaking a key trend line. You go to the daily chart, testing an incredibly important area that we've been tracking for quite some time. I want to break that down on the ADA chart. So hit the subscribe, hit the like, and let's just jump into the video and let's start with Bitcoin. I'm not going to show a clip, but this is yesterday's video. We're just talking about the very fact that Bitcoin was testing that 20-day moving average in green and that lower trend line, the downside potential, right? To the downside target. This is what it looks like now on the daily chart. You can see Bitcoin breaking to the downside. So the target is right around $26,000 or so to the downside. I think the biggest piece of data that kind of steps into line as Bitcoin makes its approach to that area is the 50-day moving average. I think that's a really key area to watch out for. But what I wanted to talk about with Bitcoin is two things. Number one, macro bullish continuation. And then number two, the fake out, a bullish move getting ready to happen maybe in the short term, and what to watch for so that you might not be faked out or fooled. And that's on the 6-hour chart here. But first, the data on the weekly. Now, the weekly chart, and the thing I want to point out is this. It's a weekly candle in red right now. It's looking kind of ugly. There's still 3 days, 1 hour left of this Bitcoin weekly candle. Anything could happen. It could be just end up being a very bullish candle with a huge green, wick, and we're going higher in 3 days. Who knows? But the point that I want to illustrate here is I want to go back and I want to go look at the data from exiting 2018 into 2019, exiting that bear market. We've been doing a lot of comparison in this move back here. And if you just look in the middle of that move, you can see this big red candle for Bitcoin, and it was consolidation on the RSI as well. So you can see Bitcoin overbought, consolidation on the RSI at that big red candle, and it actually continued higher. I think this was like a 70% move or so for Bitcoin. Right now, we're getting consolidation. There's room for another swing high. If we look at Bitcoin and compare these two areas, I just want to show you, and I'm not sitting here saying, hey, it happened in the last bull market, or, exiting the last bear market, I should say, it's going to happen in this bear market. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am taking is very similar data points in terms of macro momentum, and we do see what is in play. So from that dip back here in 2019 to the swing high, it was actually around 80%, a little bit more than 80%. And if you look at where Bitcoin is right now to around, let's say 70%, you have Bitcoin hitting that lower high area that we've discussed for Bitcoin. Bitcoin does have a target to the $40,000 vicinity. So that is in play still. It really is from a momentum perspective. Now, on the shorter term though, I want to evaluate, well, this would require Bitcoin to, at the very least, hit its target around 26,000 that we have on the short term, and maybe at that point start turning around. But it's what I'm seeing on the very short term that I just wanted to throw out there right now. And that is to say, and this could be especially in an environment, this is the US dollar currency index, if this actually just begins falling and maybe tomorrow risk on assets like Bitcoin actually start rising, this could be the play for this. But on the 6-hour chart, it's just the very fact that if we look at the momentum of Bitcoin, it's broken out of this lower trend line, yes. But what do we often see before we look at the momentum? We often see breakouts out of trend lines, and then we get pullbacks to the actual trend line that it broke out of. Same thing to the upside. Breakouts to the upside, throwback. So I'm always evaluating that after getting this move to the downside out of that lower trend line. Now, the question is, when would a throwback happen? The throwback could happen at any time, but we start looking at momentum oscillators for a bit of context or maybe some clues. So quicker moving momentum oscillator, not too much, not too helpful in this regard. This could hang out down here for a while, but it's the RSI, the slower moving momentum oscillator. You can look at Bitcoin on the 6-hour chart. Obviously, in this very big dip back here in March, you can see Bitcoin, it fell heavily into overbought. I mean, this was a huge signal just at the very least for any type of bounce, and you can see it was a huge bounce. Bitcoin's approaching overbought. We need to start evaluating if there's some short-term capitulation, whether that's to the $26,000 target, if it's lower than the $26,000 target especially, and Bitcoin's falling all the way down and overbought on the 6-hour, that's at the very least a short-term bullish signal in my opinion. That's just how I see the charts. But we're getting into this overbought territory, and you can see when Bitcoin starts approaching this area, we get these these upside swings, and they're not always so strong. They could be weak, but this could be the play as Bitcoin approaches that oversold area. This could be the play for Bitcoin. And maybe there's one more 6-hour candle to the downside that really gets it into overbought on the 6-hour. Maybe we're at 27,500, and then Bitcoin's actually starting to make a move to the upside. What I'd be watching for, this could be the bullish fake out before even going down to the target, right? Would be this lower trendline area once again. No matter when it happens, if it's shorter term, 29,500, maybe it's closer to 30,000, that whole area up here, I'd be really watching closely if Bitcoin makes a move to the upside. Just because Bitcoin, if it happens, starts turning around 3% to the upside, it's at 29.2, $1,000 swing to the upside. That's not any type of bullish confirmation. What we really want to see and what I'd be looking for in the short term is a break back into and above this lower trend line and into this channel. And then maybe we could start evaluating. This could be a busted pattern in play, meaning fake out to the downside, and then Bitcoin's back to it. The bulls are back to it. That's what I'll be evaluating in Bitcoin. So pivoting over to ADA, same type of deal on the weekly, 3 days, 1 hour. We've been really watching this closely. We want to see that 50-week moving average just below the weekly close. But right now, the 50-week moving average, this current red candle is failing there, right? Right around 41 cents or so. ADA right around 40 cents as I do this video. Again, there's still 3 days, 1 hour. Going to be watching. I'm really curious to see how ADA just closes this weekly candle. We already talked about so far the kind of how normal it might be for ADA to consolidate between the 20 and the 50. This is something that we saw back here kind of before the last cycle, that happening even right here. And then even before the 20 week was crossing the 50 back here. We talked about that, I think, in yesterday's video. Going to the daily though, and then we're going to pivot and look at the short-term targets, maybe a fake out in play for ADA too, maybe a bullish confirmation on the shorter term. But right now, this is getting tricky. We have this neckline being tested. I mean, right now on this daily chart, and there's 5 minutes, so there's no doubt in my mind as I'm ending this video or as it's uploading, ADA is probably going to close below this neckline, right around 41 cents, unless it moves a penny in the next 5 minutes. I don't think that's happening. But what I want to evaluate is the inverse head and shoulders, of course, and the neckline, how ADA is kind of throwing back to the neckline. But I want to just build in the story of this consolidation, this rising channel that has happened, and allow some room for ADA to consolidate, right? It would be very bullish if ADA would have bounced right off of 41 cents and just a nice just continuation, right? But if we allow for ADA to consolidate, meaning on this short-term structure, hit its target to the downside, 36 cents, on the daily, ADA could really be just seeing support right at the 200 and the 50-day moving averages, the 50 in blue, 200 in red. ADA could just fall to that area, to its target, see support, and just kind of test the neckline again, and this inverse head and shoulders could still be in play in my view. I don't think ADA breaking below the neckline just, kills the entire inverse head and shoulders. So I'm going to be continuing to track that, but the key area target is down to the 35 cent area for ADA. Now, on ADA, on the 4 hour, I want to show you this. Same thing that we just discussed on Bitcoin. On the 4 hour, ADA is in the oversold territory, and it's a different amount of power each time, but when ADA gets here, oversold, it starts moving, right? And it's either starting to make a move to the upside in kind of a powerful way. And so we can get kind of a sense of that maybe right here. It wasn't even an oversold here. ADA cruising to the upper trend line. Here, this was a very clear swing low. And then ADA is just making a move to the upside. But then we have these little ones, right? It's hitting oversold, but not much is really happening other than it's getting pulled into this moving average, the 20 moving average, that green line. So at the very least, what that says to me, since we are in oversold, it's very much in play to see ADA, what we just talked about on Bitcoin, do something similar. And that is to pull up and into, in some fashion, whether it's the neckline of the inverse head and shoulders around 41 cents, it could be a little bit more bullish of a move, maybe 42 cents back to this lower trend line. But really, I'd be watching this moving average on the short term. Does ADA make a move into that area? And what area is it testing, right? Is it testing the neckline, the inverse head and shoulders neckline that goes all the way back here to October? Or is it testing this lower trend line, and this would be a swing for ADA, a short one, a bigger one, but this bullish move on the very short term. And we can't even call it bullish. We can just call it maybe some green candles on the 4 hour. But what's happening at that area if this gets retested, the neckline, this lower trend line? Is ADA breaking back into this with power? That's what I'll be watching for. That's the bullish confirmation. But we could get bearish confirmation if ADA, maybe it comes down a little bit lower. Maybe we're at 38 cents and then it starts making its move to the upside. And then there's rejection here, resistance here. That could be the bearish signal right there. But right now we do know, just at the very least, the target to the downside, 35, 36 cents. That's what's in play for ADA. And on the daily chart, we know that's those moving averages over here that are incredibly important. And then on the weekly chart, the 20-week moving average right at 35 cents, incredibly important for ADA. So we're going to just monitor this entire move the next 3 days, 1 hour, important for ADA as we monitor these charts. So wanted to give an update. I know not too much has happened, but wanted to just kind of cover the charts as we go into the end of today and to the beginning of tomorrow. So I hope you're doing well out there. Please hit that subscribe, hit the like. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.